Okay, so let us start the concept of TDS, tax deducted at source. Basically, there are two concepts which I will use in TDS. Who has to, under which section TDS is applicable, and in which case TDS is applicable. In every case, TDS is not applicable. Whenever I earn the income, so whosoever pays me the income, it doesn't mean that on every payment he has to deduct tax at source. No, we have some special sections to deal with it. And then I will discuss with you TDS returns. The person who has deducted my tax, that person has a job in the form of TDS return, because that person cannot keep that TDS with himself or herself. He or she or it has to submit that tax to the government of India, and how that person will submit in the form of TDS returns. Let me first show you the website of the tax department, where I will tell you TDS sections. Only relevant ones are in our course, not all the sections. I hope the website is visible. This is chapter 17 of the Income Tax Act, collection and recovery of tax. This is having all TDS sections starting from section 190. As you can see, deduction at source and advance payment, starting from section 190 till so many sections are there. As you can see, there are so many sections. So it's a very lengthy topic. It deals with TDS and advanced taxes. So I'm not covering all the sections. Let me show you only relevant ones. So let me again come to the word file. So let me tell you only relevant ones. So first point, deduction of tax at source and advance payment. This is main heading. This is the main heading. Now, why this concept is necessary, deduction of tax at source and advance payment, why it is necessary? For 1 year, I earn the income and then I pay the tax to the government of India. Can government wait for 1 year? If government will wait for 1 year, that let 1920 be passed, then we will get the revenue. How will the expenditures during 1920 will be met without the source of income? If government doesn't get regular income, how government can do the regular expenses? And the income source of government is what? Most prominently, tax is the only source. Tax is the main source, you can say, of the government of India. So government cannot wait for 1 year. So what government says, after 1 year you have to pay your final tax, full tax, but we cannot wait for 1 year. So the moment you earn the income, after some time you start paying the tax to us, and that is why it is known as, that is where there are concepts of deduction of tax at source and advance payment. What is deduction of tax at source? For example, in the month of April, the college gives me salary. College will not give me full salary. College will first deduct some tax and will pay to the government of India, and I will get the remaining amount. It is known as deduction of tax at source, where the payer of income to the assessee will deduct some tax at source and then pay the remaining amount to the assessee. In gambling, in Kaun Banega Crorepati, such competitions are there. When the income is, prize money is earned, that earner doesn't receive the full amount, 30% tax is deducted on the spot and will be paid by the organizers to the government of India, and the winner will get away with this 70% amount. This is the benefit of deduction of tax at source. So the amount which is deducted by the payer of income, that will reach to the government of India on time. So what is basically deduction of tax at source? If Mr. X pays rupees 3 lakh to Mr. J for some fees, as fees for professional services, Mr. X will deduct tax at source and will pay tax at source on behalf of what? Mr. J. Now, 3 lakh is the income of Mr. J, but Mr. J will show this income of 3 lakh after the completion of the year 1920, and at that time he will pay the tax. Government cannot wait for the tax. So government says that we have TDS provisions. Before paying 3 lakh to Mr. J, it is the duty of Mr. X to deposit some tax. It can be 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%, depending upon the sections. So for this, we have section 194J. I don't want to discuss that section in detail, but I'm giving you an example that you have to check which payment is being made. Is that payment subject to TDS? Every payment is not subject to TDS. You need to check, is that payment subject to TDS or not? If yes, then don't pay the full amount. Pay something less, and whatever is you have deducted, pay to the government of India. For example, suppose suppose 10% is tax deducted. Suppose 10% is tax deducted. That means suppose rupees 30,000 has been deducted and rupees 270 given to Mr. J. This tax, so what will happen now here? When Mr. J will compute the income of assessment year 2020-21, when Mr. J will compute the income of assessment year 2020-21, he will not show 2 lakh 70 as income. Ultimately, his income was 3 lakh. So he will show income of 3 lakh. He will show other incomes, whatever those incomes are, salary, HP, whatever, जो भी उसकी income है, he will show all other incomes also. He will compute GTI less, he will compute deductions, he will get total income. On total income, he will compute the tax, whatever is that. Then he will apply all other things like rebate 87A. He will apply all the things. Rebate 87A, surcharge, cess, and whatever is this final figure, the tax. But from this he will deduct TDS. How much? 30,000. He will say that on my behalf, some other person has already given you the TDS and he will pay only the remaining balance. This is the final tax which is now payable. Have you understood this structure? Have you understood this structure? Please raise your hand. This is what the process is. Have you understood this? Okay. TDS is only giving timely payment to the government of India. Ultimately, it is the real tax which has been paid by the assessee indirectly. Now, this is what Mr. J will do. So what Mr. J will do? J will show this 30,000 while paying tax to the government as deducted. And what is the responsibility of Mr. X? Mr. X has to furnish the TDS returns and to deposit the tax of rupees 30,000 with the government of India on time. This is what the job of Mr. X is. That's it. X को 30,000 में से कुछ नहीं मिलेगा. He has to deposit the tax on time. Is it clear? Please raise your hand. This is what my TDS concept is. That's it. Now let me tell you only relevant sections which are necessary for you to do. Not all sections. So I will discuss now only relevant ones. I'll tell you from my book which relevant sections you should do. TDS on lottery and crossword puzzle I have already covered. So the TDS sections, TDS provisions relevant. First, TDS on gambling incomes. TDS on gambling incomes except horse race income. I have already covered that in the chapter income from other source. I have already covered that section 194B. It is my section 194B. You have to read it from income from other source. I have covered it. TDS on horse races then. It is 194BB. I have already covered that in the chapter income from other sources. So I'm not discussing these two right now. I have covered that. And other relevant section is that's it. These two sections are relevant for you, for your level, for income tax law and practice. These two are the only relevant sections of TDS. That's it. Otherwise, in reality, it's a very lengthy topic, but you are supposed to do only two things. Next point. Now TDS returns. So the next discussion now is TDS returns. Who has to file, just like who has to file return of income, who has to file TDS returns? What is the due date of TDS returns? So let me discuss this topic now. So the relevant topics in TDS returns are types of TDS returns. That is a relevant topic. So within TDS return, my first topic is types of TDS returns. Under income tax we have different forms. Now here we have different types of TDS returns. Form number 24Q, it is submitted on quarterly basis. That means on each quarter base, this form has to be submitted by the person who has deducted tax at source. And for which purpose? For section 192, it is basically salary income. Whenever employer deducts tax at source, employer has to furnish form number 26Q on quarterly basis. So 192, you are not supposed to learn any section, no need to learn any section. I am telling you, it is for salary income taxations. Like our college must be submitting form 24Q on quarterly basis for the tax deducted on the salary given to the employees. Form 27Q. A little bit technical for you, so don't do the entire point. Let me tell you. So other than salary, whenever any person deduct any tax, while paying that fees for technical services, while selling the house property, and when someone sells the house property, so seller should not make the entire payment to the person who is no, purchaser should not make the entire payment. Suppose I am purchasing a house property of 80 lakh rupees. I am purchasing a house property of 80 lakh rupees. I should not pay 80 lakh to the seller. I have to deduct 1% tax at source. That means I will deduct 80,000 rupees first and will pay the remaining amount to the seller. I hope you are getting my point. So TDS is basically when someone has to pay someone. So form 24Q is required to be filed on quarterly basis by the employer. Other than employer, that means other than salary, in every case of TDS, either form 27Q or form 26Q, that's it, quarterly basis. Form 26 in case of these assesses, form 27Q in case of these assesses, and form 26Q other than these assesses. That is the only difference. Other than these, employer has to furnish TDS return in form 24Q. Other than employer, in case of every payment, if payment is made by a non-resident, non-company, a foreign company, or resident but not ordinary resident, so you have to learn the name of the assesses. In these cases, other than salary payment, if they have deducted tax at source, they have to furnish form 27Q. Other than salary, other than these people, if any other assessee has deducted tax at source, then those other assessors have to simply furnish form 26Q. That is only sufficient. You are not supposed to learn what is the main detail of these sections. Please raise your hand if you got the concept that what you need to learn. You need to simply learn it. If any question comes that explain the types of TDS returns, that's it. Please raise your hand if you got a little bit idea. It's a technical concept and not so relevant in income tax. I am discussing these from safety point of view for the purpose of 5 or 7 marks theory question. That's it. Next point now. Due date of TDS returns. This is next point. Just like due date of income tax return, we have due dates of TDS returns. This is the due date. So what is the due date? Whether it is form number 24Q or form number 27Q or form number 26Q. What is the due date? Whosoever the assesses, what is the due date? For quarter ending 30th June, like if I take the example of financial year 1920, then April 19, May 19, June 19. For these 3 months, the due date is 31st July 19. For tax deducted during July, August, September 19, the due date of filing the TDS return is 31st October 19. For 31st December quarter ending, October, November, December, the due date 31st Jan, and for last quarter, the due date is 31st May 2020. Please raise your hand if these due dates are clear. You have to only learn it. Please raise your hand if this is clear. Okay. Now last point, advance payment. This is my last point. Then this topic is also over. Advance payment also fulfills the same purpose which TDS fulfills. When someone gives you the payment, that person has to deduct tax at source if covered under relevant provision and has to pay to the government of India. Now, when someone has given you the payment, if that payment is not covered under TDS, no issue. Government says when you have earned the income, you know how much is going to be expected income. Why don't you pay the advance tax? It is better if the payment is subject to TDS. If the payment is subject to TDS, then you are not at all worried. But if some payments are not subject to TDS, but you have earned the income, then you also have an obligation to pay us advance taxes regularly. So what is the condition of payment of advance taxes? Section 207 deals with it. If expected tax liability $10,000 or more financial year. Now the actual figure may change. This is only expectation based during financial year. Now suppose my financial year previous year is 1920. For example, it is 1920. If I expected that during 1920 my tax payment, I will earn so much of income that my tax payment would be more than 10,000 or 10,000. I am supposed to be covered under advance tax and I have to pay advance tax regularly. What is the due date of advance tax? That is necessary to know. So what is the due date of advance tax? on or before 15th June. Now, for example, let me give you an example. For example, my expectation was that I expected rupees 2 lakh as my tax liability. This is my expectation. It may change. भाई आज खड़ा होके मैं एक साल बाद की फ्यूचर में क्या लाइबिलिटी, हाउ कैन आई टेल, बट एटलीस्ट कुछ आइडिया तो होता है. फॉर एग्जांपल, आई एम सैलरीड एम्प्लॉय, I have an idea that how much is my salary income going to be, and on this basis how much is my expected tax liability. इतना तो आइडिया हो ही जाता है. For example, I expected rupees 2 lakh as my tax liability during 2019-20. If yes, then if this is the example, then till this is example till 15 June 2019, I have to pay how much? Not less than 15% of advance tax, which I am expecting. That means I should pay 30,000 rupees by 15th June in any case. I should pay, otherwise there will be penalties. Similarly, when 15th September comes, then till 15th September, I should pay how much? Not less than 45%. So 45% of 2 lakh is how much? 90,000. But how much I have already paid? 30,000. It's simple. I hope you are getting my point. First, you compute that 45% of 2 lakh is 90,000 minus 30, which I have already paid. Now pay 60. Similarly, till 15th December 19, 75% of 2 lakh must be paid. How much I have already paid? So you can say that minus 30 I have already paid, minus 60 I have already paid, remaining you pay now. So it is 1 lakh 50 minus 90, 60,000, and it is based on this example. Till 15th March 2020, I must pay 100%. That means out of total 2 lakh, already paid 30, very good. Already paid 60, very good and excellent. So now you pay how much? 50,000 now. And now you can see that government indirectly has collected entire tax in the same year. This is what advance payment of tax is. If the point is clear, please raise your hand. Last point, PAN number. So you have to do, it's something must be given for self-study. PAN number, permanent account number. To deal with the tax department, to communicate with the tax department, PAN number is the necessity. Please read one section yourself. Section 139 AA, 139A. Write a short note on PAN number so you can prepare a short question yourself. One 139A deals with PAN number. So I'm giving this section for your self-study. It simply tells you what is PAN number and that's it, self-study. With this, I have covered this topic of TDS, and whatever I have discussed is more than sufficient. More than sufficient. No need to do other topics than what I have covered here. For your level, these are more than sufficient. In reality, these are very lengthy and very interesting also. And now the last topic. 6 leading Supreme Court cases will not require much time. Supreme Court cases. Cases are in the course of in our course, so very briefly I will discuss those. These are very easy and very interesting. So let me end this session for the time being. We have covered this topic, advance payment and payment of tax. Now we are only left with this topic, Supreme Court cases. We will discuss this in the next lecture. Goodbye.